Hello, and welcome to the 8th Annual Fletcher Exhibit, Social and Politically Engaged Art Virtual Programming. The Reece Museum has been the host site of this international juried art exhibition since 2014. Please enjoy this program and find more virtual programming on this YouTube channel as well as www.etsu.edu/Reece, REECE.
Hello and welcome everyone to this special programming for the Reece Museum's 2020 Fletcher exhibit, Social and Politically Engaged Art. My name is Savanah Bennett and I am the graduate assistant at the Reece Museum. Today I am speaking with Shanna Glawson, the recipient of the 2020 Sammy L. Nicely Appalachian Artist Award. So Shanna, to start us off, do you know anything about Sammy L. Nicely and this award and the work that he has done with the Reece Museum?
I am somewhat familiar with his presence at this gallery and the opportunity he had to work with you guys and create art here.
Yeah, I did not know him personally either because I'm new to the area. I don't know how long you've been here at ETSU and near the Reece, but I've been told that he was a wonderful and wholesome man that really strived to promote inclusive and diverse art within the Reece and in the Johnson City community. So before we get to the questions, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself, your education, and what you've been doing?
Yeah, my name is Shanna Glawson, and I was born and raised in the Appalachian region and have a bachelor's in fine arts from UNC Asheville and currently working on getting my master's degree here at East Tennessee State University. I'm in my last year, so I'm currently working on a thesis, show, and exhibit that will be coming up in March.
Cool. How would you describe your art style and what you create?
I typically would say that I am a contemporary female sculpture installation artist that has a fondness for a wide variety of materials and techniques, and I try to also cover a variety of contemporary social issues throughout my work as well.
Okay. So would you just tell us a little bit about this piece, Difficulty Breathing in 2020, and what really inspired you to create it?
I was inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020. I created this piece as a means to personally reflect on what was going on in society. Back in March, we were facing the quarantine and the pandemic, but then also starting into June, we started seeing more protests and the death of George Floyd. So I wanted to be able to speak to that, but I didn't think social media was the right outlet for me. And so I wanted to create this piece as an authentic way for me to be able to contribute to the conversation. So I spent a lot of nights isolated in my studios working on it. And so I tried to capture the Black Lives Matter movement through use of color in all black, the form, with the compression of the chest and neck to sort of symbolize the inability to breathe during this hard time for our society, and then also the use of a gas mask to represent the toxicity that the Black community is facing with the racial injustice and police brutality. And then I also encompassed it with 3 different sayings of the Black Lives Matter movement, being Black Lives Matter, I can't breathe, and say their names.
That's awesome. So is Difficulty Breathing a piece that aligns with other pieces that you have created, or is this kind of different and unique from what you've been working on prior to the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020?
I think it's unique in some ways because this is the first piece that I have addressed racial issues because I didn't really feel like it was my place to maybe speak on these matters as much as it would be coming from somebody else that would need their voice heard. So I didn't want to step on anybody's toes, but it does align with other pieces that I've been working on, which is trying to research trauma and how that affects different branches of society. So this is just one aspect of that sort of research I've been doing.
Okay. Do you typically aim to create, and I guess this kind of goes along with that question, do you aim to create art that is really socially and politically engaged, or does that align like with the trauma that you were just talking about at all, or is it coming from like another angle that's not necessarily socially or politically engaged?
I think my art does filter in more to the socially engaged aspect of the art and the artist. I have passion to use my art as a voice to vulnerable groups in our society that may be more susceptible to negative treatment. So I do have a large focus on human rights and the vast range of human needs that are essential for meaningful existence as a whole. So I believe that art is an effective tool to send these public messages and raise awareness about these social and political issues. And that way human rights and the arts actually go hand in hand because of the expressive nature of both subjects.
Awesome. So, getting to the Appalachian kind of portion of this award and everything, have you lived in Appalachia all of your life?
Yes, I'm born and raised here in the mountains and also in the foothills.
Okay. And do you like living here?
Yes.
And do you identify as an Appalachian artist? Is that a way that you describe your art and yourself?
I do definitely identify as an Appalachian artist.
So what does that mean to you?
I think as Appalachian artists, I think we as Appalachian people know a thing or two about hard work and what that means to work really hard. And so I do try to embody that into my art, when I create art. Also, the fact that my grandmothers or grandparents also born and raised in this region and grew up during the coming out of the Great Depression in these small farms and working in mills as like children, they had to create their own happiness. They couldn't download it or purchase it at that time. They really had to work and make these things from their hands. So they sewed their own clothes, they made their own toys, just to really be able to provide something for themselves. And so I think that was definitely passed along from my grandmothers especially, that taught me how to create art as a means to, as an outlet for being a hard worker and all these other feelings and stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool. This wasn't on my original list, but now that I think about it, like Appalachia has a long-standing tradition of crafting, and you think about like weaving and pottery and even things like quilting and knitting. Do you partake in any of those like traditional Appalachian crafts?
I do. I try to, that very much so, like carving is something I definitely do in my work. So whittling wood is something that's not necessarily traditionally a female craft, but I did want to pick it up and say, women can also do this craft. It's all just like needlepoint and basket weaving for us women these days. And so I did grow up like learning how to crochet and knit my own scarves and things like that. So I do have those sewing technical skills too, and some dyeing sort of aspects as well.
Cool. And do you think that being a woman in particular, an Appalachian woman, does that ever shine through in your work specifically? Do you focus on maybe the gender roles or expectations of women in Appalachia at all?
I do, definitely, because I feel like when I tell people I'm an artist, sometimes they'll assume that I paint pretty pictures or something like that. So I'm definitely trying to define, like step outside the boundaries and say, I can do this considered man's work because we know that women get in the fields and work just as hard plowing and making a garden, so we can also do that in the craft aspect of it as well. And so I think it's really empowering as a woman to be able to use power tools, but also like empower other younger generations of women to say, you can take care of your own household and do your own crafts and build your own entertainment systems or whatever you need to do, like to do it kind of thing.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I know that definitely my experience here learning about Appalachia and just how that has been a theme for so long in the region of how women work just as hard. And I think it's important, that everyone sees that. So that's really cool. Do you see yourself creating more works like this in the future?
Yeah, I do see myself creating more socially engaged art. For me, like, it's not about, like, I don't necessarily want to be the voice of the Black Lives Matter movement. For me in the future, I would want to just be able to provide a platform to give others, because in the past I've worked with at-risk youth and the homeless community and even the queer community, and sort of like try to reach out to them and help them find their own voice through art and expression. And so that is mostly, I think, what I would like to strive for in the future as well.
Okay. And then what message do you hope that visitors walk away with when they view difficulty reading in 2020?
Well, I hope this piece will inspire and motivate people to ask themselves if we are really addressing what matters in 2020, and to encourage social action and engagement, and be more politically aware, not just with the election, but also with what everything else that is going on. We need to pay closer attention to it and be more participation in it, not just say this is a Black person's problem or this is somebody else's problem, but it's a human problem that we need to figure out together.
Right. And I think that's something that's really special about you receiving this award, but the winner of the award is not something that is Appalachia specific. It's something that's affecting the entire nation and then even internationally. So I think that's really cool that as an Appalachian artist, you're not just speaking for Appalachia, you're speaking to everyone, which is really cool. So, are any of your works, including difficulty reading in 2020, specific to Appalachia, or do you tend to create with a focus that is more national or international?
I do tend to focus more on universal appeal, but I have been lately trying to be more specific in my artwork. So I recently created a sculptural installation of tile confined that was particularly inspired by the Appalachian region and my own upbringing. So during my earliest childhood years, I grew up in a trailer park. And so I kind of wondered how that not only affected me, but a lot of other people in this region. And so what I've come to realize is that poverty is a vicious cycle that is hard to escape from, especially since more profit prisons are becoming the new industry in the Appalachian region. And since 1991, 14 state and federal prisons have been built in Appalachia. And so I find it disturbing that over the last 40 years, the prison population has increased 500%, but really no evidence that there's been an increase in crime. So I am trying to address some of these concerns about this being an industry in Appalachia through this piece that I've created, where I've taken my crib and put in prison stripe sheets with a orange jumper suit sort of baby blanket, and then for the mobile I've created a mobile home mobile. And so this idea of the mobile home sort of spinning around, and how growing up in this sort of economic lifestyle is sort of a cage of destiny for a lot of people.
Okay. Yeah, that's super interesting because that's another thing that you see a lot in the Appalachian literature. People are always posing the question, why do people stay? And that's just something interesting to consider. Maybe for some people it's not a choice. So that's really interesting. Are there any other, social themes affecting Appalachia specifically that bother you? Maybe you're not creating anything regarding them right now, but other political issues that maybe you'd like to talk about in the future?
Yeah, I think so. this especially, I find particularly interesting the fact that there's parts of the Appalachia that are like basically unlivable and uninhabitable, and yet people are living there and getting like cancers, and there's certainly a huge like health concern for these people living in these horribly toxic parts of the Appalachia.
Absolutely. So thank you today for talking with us, Shanna, and letting us know more about your award-winning piece, Difficulty Reading in 2020.
It's great talking to you. Thank you so much for having me.